Hi, hello, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Ege, and this is In Between Books. So today, guys, we're going to be talking about books on my shelves that I love, but I almost never ever talk about them. So these books, maybe I read them at a time when I just wasn't active on booktube, or just for one reason or the other, I just have never talked about this book. But these are books that are very close to my heart, so today I just decided to share them with you guys also. Anyway, so let's just get into it. So the first book I have is Things We Do Not Tell the People We Love by OrhueEghosasere, and this is a short story collection. This book examines how love can turn sour in a relationship, be it a platonic relationship or a romantic relationship between siblings, between parents and child, between lovers, between friends. It was such a beautiful and honestly poetic stories. I love them. I can't remember how many stories, but I know that I love more than 50% of these stories. They are just stories that deeply touched me. So yeah, honestly, if you've seen this collection, I highly recommend. The next is As Long as the Lemon Trees Grow by Zulfa Kator. I hope I don't butcher her name too much. But yeah, this is a book, I believe this is YA, and it's set in Syria. And honestly, thinking about this book now and the news that recently came out of Syria, it recently got liberated, and I saw people celebrating about it online. So yeah, just thinking about this book now kind of warms my heart. But this is a book set during the Syrian war in Syria. It follows a young girl. Her name is Salama, and basically she volunteers at a hospital, just trying to help as many people as she can. The only family she has left now is her pregnant sister-in-law, who is also her best friend, Layla. And so both of them, they are just like trying their best to see how they can survive day by day, and also looking for ways to be able to leave Syria, escape the war for safety. And then all this changes when she meets Kenan, who is a young boy that is like fighting for the revolution of Syria, and he's also bent on staying in Syria. Like, Salma wants to stay with Kenan, but Kenan wants to stay in Syria. But Syria right now is not safe for anyone, so she's trying her best to try and look for ways to convince him, and also convince herself, because it's not an easy thing to leave home. Like, how your home is still your home, but at the same time it's not, just because of the war and how that just ravages and changes everything. This was honestly a very touching book, and yeah, read As Long as the Lemon Trees Grows. Then the next I have is Daughter of Smoke and Bone by Laini Taylor. This is one of the very first YA fantasy series that I read, and I loved this one. And Raven Boys, those are like my favorite fantasy series of all time. But back to, there are 3 books in the series, a trilogy, and the first book is like an urban fantasy, but the other 2 books we go into this very expansive, epic new world, and in this book is known as Elsewhere. So this book follows Carol, and she's this young girl that is living a double life. In one of them, she's just a young 17-year-old art student in Prague, and the other one, she's the messenger for a monstrous creature that is the closest thing she has to family. And now the doors to Elsewhere is closing, so Carol has to decide if she wants to stay in the human world and continue living her ordinary human life, or if she wants to go into this world filled with monsters and angels and gods and demons, and see what happens there. And honestly, this is such a good series. The writing, to the characters, to the world, everything about this book, 10 over 10. If you've not read this book, go and read it. Go and read it. You are missing something sweet. Honestly, go and read it. The next I have is Sui Davis God Hunter by Sui Davis Okumbawa. What did I say? The next I have is David Mongo God Hunter by Sui Davis Okumbawa, and this is an urban fantasy set in Lagos, Nigeria. So it takes place, I think, 1,000 years after the gods have landed on Earth, and they've brought about chaos, and so everything is not the same. So we're looking at a post-apocalyptic Lagos, and it follows David Mongo, who is a demigod and also a god hunter, and he's been tasked with, he's given this task where he has to find two gods. I believe they are like the Ibeji. I've forgotten, they're called Ibeji now, like the Yoruba twin gods. And he's given this task to find these gods and also bring them to the most powerful wizard gangster in Lagos. That is Lukman Ajala. And yeah, this is honestly, I have never read anything like this before, especially set in Lagos. So I think when I read this, just the seeing like this steampunk X type book set in my locale, like set in Lagos, it was just very intriguing. And this is such a really good book, honestly. And I have The Fisherman by Chigozie Obioma. This was one of the first books I read when I started reading books by African authors. I remember reading this in 2018. I was on my medical posting, working in a hospital. I was in my hostel. It was in the middle of the night and I was weeping. I was crying. I honestly disturbed my hostel that night and it was glorious. Anyway, so The Fisherman is a book about four brothers and they live in a small town in Akure. So after their civil servant father is transferred to work in another city, they start misbehaving. They're smashing windows. They're smashing windows. They're cutting off chicken heads. They're just being a general nuisance to society until one day they run into Abulu, who is the village madman. And Abulu can also see visions. So he prophesies that one of the younger brothers is going to kill the eldest brother. And so after this pronouncement, the entire family just turned upside down. And yeah, we'll see what happens from there. This is such a good book. From the writing, although sometimes the writing can be a bit gory, but the writing, the characters, everything about this book was fantastic. After reading this, I was sold on African literature, I won't lie. So read this one. And the next book I have for you guys is The Island of Sea Women by Lisa C. I can also remember reading this book. I actually listened to the audiobook. This follows two young girls. We have Mija and Young Suk. They are both girls living on Jeju Island. And yes, basically following their lives and the life they lived in Korea and also their friendship. This book takes place during the Japanese occupation of Korea and also during the Second World War and Korean War, and it's a book about the Henyo, which are women, the female divers in Jeju Island. This book was so good, but so painful, so heartbreaking, but still so like the final book I'm going to share with you guys today is People Person by Candice Cathy Williams. This is a book, I believe this book takes place in the UK, London, and it's about 5 people who are connected to each other by one man who is their father, and his name is Cyril Pennington. So we have Dimple, Lizzie, Prince, Nikisha, and Danny. Dimple Pennington is a 30-year-old that her life is basically a mess. Like, she's still trying to find her way in life, and she's also trying to be an influencer, but it's not working out. And something catastrophic happens to her that forces her to reconnect with her other 4 half siblings, and during the process of like solving this problem, they are all forced to reconnect with their father, Cyril Pennington, and things just get more complicated from there. Honestly, this was such a good book. Like, it's a very, will I call it a light-hearted book? I'm not really sure, but it's just it's an okay book. Like, it's a good book. It's like the first part of the book reminds me of Dial A for Aunties, and if you have read Dial A for Aunties, you know that first part of Dial A for Aunties, what happens, almost something similar to that happens in the first part of this book. So it was just very wacky from that start, and it was just fun to follow the siblings, and then we got into the sibling dynamics and also their relationship with their father. It was honestly a very intriguing book, and yeah, I would definitely recommend. So okay guys, so that has been the videos, and those are the books that are on my shelf that I love, but I know I haven't actually I haven't talked about them before on this channel. And thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope to see you in my next one.